on the post-COVID challenges in schools. As we are, all the schools are closed now, all the education institutions are closed down, but we can't go on indefinitely like that. After this, we need to come back. Our kids need to come back to the school. So how we are going to deal with that situation? That's the theme of the day. We would be having a session upon this by Ms. Smitha Matai, and later we would bring storm on this issue. This meeting is being organized by MGM Group of Institutions, as well as also the president of ACCES, Association of Chhattisgarh Christian Educational Association. And we also have with us His Grace Dr. Joseph Dionysius, who is heading MGM Group of Institutions, as well as the Calcutta Diocese of Kalangara Orthodox Church. On behalf of all these associations, on all the participants, I very humbly welcome both the arch. We have with us today Ms. Smitha Matai. She's one of the eminent educationists who's also education trainer. She has worked as teacher, subject head, secondary coordinator, as a principal, a curriculum designer, research associate, and for last many years she is training the principals as well as teachers of various schools and colleges. We are blessed to have Ma'am Smitha Matai with us on behalf of all the participants and on behalf of MGM Group of Institutions as well as ACCES. I wholeheartedly welcome Smitha Ma'am to this meeting. We have with us eminent principals of various schools in and outside Chhattisgarh, even from outside the country. And also we have leaders of education institutions who are on the policy making board. So on behalf of this meeting, I welcome all of you. Today we would be discussing about various aspects of how we can run the school once the students start coming after the post-school. We would be dealing with various aspects of safety measures that need to be taken, how the curriculum can be transacted, what all assessments methods can be adopted, also some new models like flipped classrooms and blended classrooms. As most of the schools have already started online classes, we can't just go ahead with the traditional classrooms anymore. We need a blended approach. We need online as well as offline once this starts in. And also we need to have a blending of parents into the school community in a positive way. I have seen some of the schools have already started conducting virtual assemblies. Since the students can't come to the school, online they are conducting virtual assemblies and they are also conducting virtual parent-teacher meetings. So I think these are going to be the new normal of the day. So I'm sure Madam Smitha will be talking about all those things. I don't want to take much of the time. Before we have Ms. Smitha Matai with us, I request His Grace Dr. Victor Henry Thakur, the Archbishop of Raipur, to address us.
All of you, dear friends.
Good morning.
I acknowledge your precious presence here. First of all, His Grace, our dear Bishop Dr. Joseph Dionysius, Metropolitan of the Calcutta Diocese and President of MGM Group of Institutions. His Excellency, dear Bishop Robert Ali, Bishop of the CNI Diocese of our resource person, Mrs. Smitha Matai. Madam, your presence with us is a gift to us, and we cordially welcome you to address. Dear Reverend Father Dr. Josie Varghese, our active and dedicated secretary to our association, dear fathers, sisters, principals, teachers, and my dear brothers, sisters, and friends. This morning, we have come together for a virtual meeting to reflect together on the post-COVID challenges in schools. In fact, no one, not even the scientists or the fortune tellers, can tell us for sure what would exactly be the post-COVID scenario. However, the changes are inevitable. Some are already seen, and therefore we cannot just wait and watch for the changes to happen, but we need to consider seriously and prepare ourselves proactively to face the coming realities or challenges, or call it opportunities. Dear friends, it is rightly said, necessity is the mother of invention. The closure of schools due to the COVID-19 pandemic has caused many to think about the future of our schools in the post-COVID period. As we are also doing the same, let our first consideration be the safety and well-being of our children, students. And therefore, various provisions are to be made to deal with health emergency and precautions that are to be taken. Many schools are making move from on ground to online classes. Yesterday, I read in the newspaper on the front page, Hitawada, Mr. Nandan Nilekani, Infosys chairman, while delivering a keynote address at a virtual conference on the topic, Future of Schools Overcoming COVID-19 Challenges and Beyond, he said, I quote, the rapid shift to move everything online, Zoom classes, teaching through smartphones, all of this is part of a short-term response, which though was necessary but not sufficient. We need to fundamentally reimagine school, a resilient system to be built strategically, detailing how we are going to deal with turbulence for the next few years. Unquote. Dear friends, as Christians, we need to look at education as mission. Our schools are guided by certain gospel values, which may not be seen in other schools. We are called to see things, changes, and challenges from the eyes of faith and the courage of conviction that our God has in heaven. God with us, at all times, and without Him, we can do nothing. He tells us assuringly, fear not, I am with you always. We need to be aware that many of our schools, about 60% of them, are in rural area, serving mostly the poor, middle class, and marginalized. Most of them are financially dependent on their societies. How will they face the challenges? It is really that cannot be ignored. And therefore, as we have come together, we need not just look at the world the way they are facing these challenges. We need to develop, according to our faith, our value system, something which really will fulfill the purpose with which we run our schools. With these thoughts, I welcome all of you once again, dear friends, to discuss together this important aspect we are faced with. Once again, I thank you for your presence. Welcome you cordially. This virtual. May God bless.
Thank you, Bishop Ji, for the encouraging words. I call upon Ms. Smitha Matai to take over. We will be having around 1 hour of session, and after that we will be having an interactive session for 20 to 30 minutes. Ma'am, please.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, respected Bishop Ji, principals gathered here, and all friends. It's an absolute privilege to be here in this August gathering, to be addressing all of you. It's an honor to be able to connect with all of you, even in these difficult times. Before I get on, I would just like to confirm, I hope my screen is visible to all. Can everybody see the PPT request? Yes, and like I was saying, it was wonderful to hear the wise words from Bishop Ji, where he put a lot of what I'm going to be sharing with you. He's encapsulated it wonderfully, and the way he quoted what Mr. Nilakani shared in yesterday's conference on post-COVID challenges in school. It's really indeed interesting to see what the COVID-19 situation has done to us. I'm going to take up the next hour and a half to 2 hours. I'm going to spend the first 1.5 hours taking you through the various stages of what we are going to be doing in schools, how we are going to welcome children back into schools, how we are going to relentlessly continue the teaching learning progress in all situations across all stratas of society. After I've taken you through all of it, yes, we will definitely have a short question answer session in the end. And I'm going to try and as much as possible address all issues that we will be facing when we reopen again post-COVID challenges, post-COVID situation. If anything remains, you have the last 20 minutes to address your issues. So right at the beginning, before we get into the entire webinar, I'm sure most of you have been attending several webinars, have been having conferences, meetings with managements, with your staff members, with your students using the online medium. However, for most of us, we are still struggling with technology. I know this morning, although I have been conducting webinars since March, but every time I get on a new platform or with a new group, I always like to try out and ensure whether the screen is seen properly, the audio is heard. Though we know all the etiquette of a webinar, I would still like to just go through it again, because yes, some of us are still struggling. We do not realize, sometimes by mistake, sometimes not knowingly, we may disturb the flow of the webinar. So just a few ground rules to ensure that this webinar is successful. I request all participants to find a quiet corner. I know we've all logged in from our homes. We're all in a lockdown situation. Yes, we are in unlock 1.1 mode starting from today, yet schools haven't opened their doors. So most of us are connecting from our homes. So please find a quiet corner where you will not be distracted so that you can give this session your 100%. At all times, friends, please put your audio on mute. It will avoid unwanted background noises. Please be respectful. Do understand that this session is on a public domain. Also, everything that comes up in the chat window is visible to all participants. So kindly keep your contributions helpful and considerate to the host and other participants. Feel free to use the chat box while we are saying that your mics are muted. Please do not imagine to be gagged. You will be heard. Put your remarks, your suggestions, your opinions, your questions. Use the chat box to put in your thoughts. I will be keeping my eye on it as I go on. I may sometimes spark some questions to be picked up in the end. Some questions I may address as we go along. Be rest assured, all questions will be answered, will be picked up. And in case, just in case something is left out, I will take it up and address it to you on email. We have all your email IDs, so I will get back to you on email with answers to any questions that remain unanswered. And finally, friends, most importantly, at the end of the session, do stay on in the meeting for 2 to 5 minutes to just put down your thoughts in the chat box. It's going to help us to get better. Give your suggestions, give your thoughts. Tell us what are your takeaways from this webinar. What are the best practices you think you will put through in your schools? Let us work together in partnership as a community, from the teaching fraternity, from the education industry, trying to do everything possible to make a smooth transition pre-pandemic to post-pandemic. So do leave your thoughts, give your suggestions, do let me know how you found the webinar. Was the content suitable? Did the webinar live up to your expectations? I will be happy to receive critical appreciation also. All your criticism is also most welcome because I am a lifelong learner and I'm looking forward to ways and means to improve myself. Do share your thoughts, friends. Okay, so let us begin, and I would like to begin with this thought by Miss Marie Curie, where she says, "Nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less." Yes, dear friends, we are going through a very difficult time, just like Bishop Ji said. This is a tough time for mankind, for humankind. We are going through a pandemic that none of us have experienced in our lifetimes. Yes, the history of the world does show us a lot of pandemics that the world has faced, starting from the 5th century. We've had pandemics across the centuries, some lasting for years, some pandemics wiping out civilizations. Yet, for all of us, we've studied it, we've read it in history, we've never ever experienced it. For all of us, this is the first time in our lifetime that we're going through a pandemic. Yes, we are afraid, we are anxious, we are apprehensive, we really don't have all the tools. This is an absolutely unprecedented situation. So we don't have any examples to follow. We're looking at what everybody else is doing. Yet, I say, let us look within ourselves, let us look at our community and work, keeping in mind what's best in our situation. This is not the time when we can look at what Korea is doing or what China did or what some country in the Europe is doing. India is unique. We need to reinvent, we need to innovate our own methods that will suit our schools. Just like Sir said, 60% of our schools are rural schools. They require a completely different treatment. There are challenges which are very different from what schools in other parts of the world may be facing. So we need to come out with unique solutions that will suit our situation. We are going to look at some of those situations. First, let us understand, friends, what was the impact of lockdown on schools. On 16th March, when the first set of schools were asked to close, let us understand India is a diverse country. Every state had a different date. Of course, from 22nd March, the entire country went on a lockdown. Schools shut down at different times between 16th to 22nd March. But when we did go into a lockdown period, when we did go into a lockdown situation, what happened? What was the impact of it on schools? Most important, there was a sudden disruption in engagement with our students. There was a sudden stop to whatever engagement we were having with our learners. Children were asked to stay at home. Now, across India, different schools, different boards were in different stages. Just to give you an example, in Maharashtra state, I am from Mumbai, so I can tell you what's happening over here in schools. Although I do visit across the country. In fact, when the lockdown was announced, just 24 hours prior to that, I was in Gujarat. I was fortunate enough to get back home before everything shut down. In Maharashtra, when the lockdown was announced, the state board schools were just about to begin their final exams. The CBSE schools were already in a vacation mode and were going to reopen in the first week of April. The ICSE schools were preparing for their open house. So we had situations in different schools that was going on. Hence, depending on which board it was, suddenly schools didn't have exams, children got a break from the final exam. And then after a few days, after a few weeks, they were told that they will be promoted. Students who did not appear for the final exam from grades 1 to 8 were asked to be promoted. Students of classes 9 and 11, they were asked, it was told, to take an average of their annual performance and promote them. Now, students of classes 10 and 12, quite a few of them are still waiting to give their board exams, which the board has recommended dates 1 to 15th July, 1st to 15th July, when these board exams will get completed. So there was a sudden disruption in the entire flow of what happens in schools around that time. As a result, syllabus completion is a challenge. For schools who are going to reopen the new academic year in the first week of April, they have lost a month and a half of school. We may also, as of news that came to me late last evening, Mr. Ramesh Pokhriyal, our Minister for HRD, announced that he is looking at schools not opening any earlier than August. And he categorically said most probably schools and colleges will reopen only after 15th August, which means, friends, we're going to lose 4 calendar months of the academic year. So syllabus completion is going to be a challenge that we will be facing. Assessments are going to be a challenge. Now, as a result of schools closing down, schools didn't just close down, children were asked to stay home. Everyone was asked to stay home. As a result, children lost on a lot of physical activity. Children who come from cities, who live in nuclear families within 1-bedroom house, 2-bedroom house, were confined to a 500 to 1,000 square feet area. They lost out on a lot of physical activity. These are growing children. They are bundles of energy, and suddenly all that energy is constricted. They have no exposure to peers, friends. The only exposure is the adults at home, the parents. Nuclear families where you have just one child, challenging times for them. Socio-emotional development was hampered. A lot of children, when they come back to school, will take time settling down because there's going to be a burst of energy. It's going to be extremely difficult and challenging for the entire school community to adapt to this change when children come back to school. We are going to see how we can handle this. Also, the sudden jump when schools shut, there was the first concern. I remember when I was speaking to a group of principals, first concern was April was when we start gearing up, preparing our grade 9 students for the next academic year. 10th standard children start working, start studying for the board year. So the first concern was we cannot stop classes for 9 and 10. We'll never finish the syllabus. So we immediately jumped online classes. We went into the online scenario where a lot of the teachers had difficulties because we were not used to technology. We suddenly had a situation where we had to build teacher capacity to deal with taking classes online. Teachers who were teaching for 15, 20 years using the blackboard now suddenly had to face the screen, teach in a virtual world, which was a huge challenge. We had to work on teacher capacity building, where we had to, I think the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I've only been doing online teaching, learning, training sessions for schools across the country, schools abroad. And I can tell you that it's not been easy. For a lot of teachers who belong to pre-tech era, it has been a huge challenge to be able to cater to students in a virtual world. So all of these things, and yes, I should not leave out the fee collection issue. That is something I'm not sure if you are facing in that part of India. Some of you are from Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, West Bengal, and other states. Some of you may have this issue where there is resistance from parents to pay the fees, or there is a request to differ from fee payment. So that is another challenge that we will have to face. I'm not getting into details of the collection in this session. However, there are ways and means we can overcome that. We will take that up at another time. My focus today is going to be on health and safety. It is going to be on our individual roles, role of the management, role of the principal, role of a teacher. We are going to look at how to integrate all the stakeholders in the school environment. So how do we reopen schools? How do we reopen schools? I have just shared with you what you see on the screen is a document by the UNICEF and their suggestions. At the end of the session, friends, I am also going to share with you web links to a lot of the documents that I'm going to be using in this presentation. You're all free to download them and study them. You will find them extremely useful. The reason I'm not going to take you through all of it in this session is because, like Father said, we will have to deal with depending on where we are located, depending on the community that we are reaching out to, the students that come to us from different backgrounds. We'll have to tweak, change, make the changes to how we are going to use all of these in our schools. So according to UNICEF, we first need to do, I'm sorry to disrupt, but I hope my screen is visible, because sometimes I'm getting a message in between. Your screen is not being presented. Father Varghese, I hope the screen is visible continuously.
Yes, it's visible.
Yes.
If someone else presents it, come in. But
Okay.
those are paying, it would be visible always.
Yes, do let me know if for a continuous period, for a long period, if the screen stops getting shared and by mistake someone else has shared the screen, and if we miss out any slides, do let me know. Yes? All right. So according to UNICEF, analysis must be done of the pre-pandemic conditions with an acknowledgement of both existing limitations in low resource context and current goals to improve operational and learning conditions. We need to lay out certain policies. When we were running schools, pre-pandemic conditions, running schools post-COVID is going to be different. We need to relook at some of our policies. We need to list down new policies that need to be followed. We need to rework on our finances. We need to set budgets for a lot of things that are going to surface now because of the COVID-19 situation. Now this, what I'm sharing with you is what the UNICEF suggests for reopening schools in a safe manner. Now there are certain things that we need to take care before the reopening, which means, friends, we all need to form core groups with our schools, within our schools. When I say core groups, it would be members of your management, it would be your key staff members, in your admin staff, the key persons in your teaching faculty, your accounts department. So you'll have to create a core group and work out critical policies, procedures, and financing plans. You need to make improvements for safe operations and strengthening remote learning practices. Remote learning practices are teaching learning using the remote, using the internet. So we will need to make provisions for all that. A core group needs to get collected and need to start working out on all of this. I will elaborate how you can delegate, how different people in the schools can take up different responsibilities. These are only suggestions. You will need to make changes depending on the hierarchy in your schools. I can only make very broad suggestions based on my experience across schools in the world. Now, part of the reopening process, while you are reopening, you need to keep in mind that you reintegrate even the most marginalized and out of school students. Now, when we reopen, friends, I understand some of us have started online classes. Yet, when we start again, we need to keep in mind there will be few students who may not have been able to participate in the online classes. We will need to touch upon everything that was covered in the online class. We cannot start off like Mr. Pokhriyal has suggested that schools will start mid-August. Does not mean as soon as schools reopen, we have our first unit test or the midterm, start preparing for the midterm exams, assessments. No, we will first need to create a face-to-face learning environment. We will need to do partial face-to-face learning environment. Just like Bishop Ji said, it's impossible for anyone to predict in what situation, in what condition we will be when August arrives. We don't know if we will have complete freedom to have full day schools, whether we will be able to have full 6 hours, 8 hours of working, how it is going to be, whether we'll be allowed only 30% attendance, 3 days a week in groups, we don't know. So we need to be prepared to take in as much as possible, even include the marginalized students. With schools reopened, once the schools are in action, we need to actively monitor health indicators, expand focus on well-being and protection. We also need to strengthen pedagogy, our teaching methods. We need to strengthen that. We need to adapt remote education for blended teaching learning. We're going to look at all of this. This is in a nutshell what we will need to do. How we will do it, we will see in the following slides. What I've presented, I can see some people still joining us. Quite a few of you have just joined us. Very quickly, in a nutshell, what we've done so far, I have shared what UNICEF has put down as the best practices, the safe means to reopen schools in a post-COVID situation. What we need to do prior to reopening, we need to form groups. There's a lot of preparation and planning that needs to go on. As part of the reopening process, we need to ensure we include every single person who has been impacted because of the lockdown. We need to take for granted not everybody would have access to online classes. We need to find ways and means to provide the same. And when schools reopen, our focus has to be on health. Our focus has to be on reinventing teaching methods. Our focus has to be on empowering our teachers to use blended teaching learning methods. We need to train them with technology, not just teachers, probably in some cases, even our students and parents, because there are rural children, there are students who will not have, most of our students who may not have complete support of parents when it comes to technology. We will have to assist even parents. When schools reopen, schools may be located in red, orange, green zones. Now we also need to keep in mind, these zones may change from time to time. There could be a scenario that when schools reopen, a particular school is in a green zone, but there's been a sudden spike in new cases and the school may be declared to be go in an orange zone or a red zone. Hence, the core team that you will establish for your planning will need to have plan A, plan B, plan C. When you're in the red zone, this is the plan. When I say plan, that will include how your students are going to be attending classes, number of teachers who will be permitted in the school, how much of your admin staff will come to school. All of these numbers will change, duties will change. You will have to list, you will have to have 3 plans, A, B, and C, as per the zone that your school may float into in the coming months. As of now, you may be in a green zone, maybe you're in a red zone, and things are improving. Let's all pray to the Lord, keep our fingers crossed. We move from red to orange to green, and hopefully we'll be back to no COVID. There will be a vaccine. We're extremely hopeful about that. It's just another flu that we are going to be dealing with in a few months' time. Hopefully we'll see it in that way. But till then, friends, we need to have plan A, plan B, and plan C. A few suggestions for schools that have large numbers, which is most of our schools. Yes, most of our schools are filled to the brim. And going by all the names, some of the school names came up here in the chat window. Some of you have logged in with your school names. I could see St. Mary's, St. Francis. Now, these are all most of the school. In fact, I would say all the schools that have logged in are very coveted schools. So you have your admissions up to the brim. In fact, we are sometimes going beyond our means. I do know, I've been in schools, I've done admissions. I do know sometimes a class capacity of 40, 50, you still have a letter coming from the collector, from the MLA, this is one more you have to cater. And a class of 40, by the time we are functional in July, August, goes up to 45, 40 times. So we are taking in much more than our capacity. In such a situation, what can we do? Some suggestions, friends. Students can come to school in shifts, provided you have enough teachers, which means you have to reduce the time for every shift. You cannot have a full 6-hour shift. You may have to run 2 shifts of 3 hours, where half and half students come in, because you'll have to keep in mind social distancing, physical distancing. I think we should also try to make it a practice to call this physical distancing. We never socially distance ourselves. Yes, man is a social being. Despite the lockdown, all of us are connected through technology, either through WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, webinars such as these. So we've really not distanced ourselves socially. We are socially active, but yes, we have to maintain physical distance. And to maintain physical distance, if required, we will need to, when schools reopen, have students coming in shifts, in batches, which means you'll have to reduce timing, because we may not have teacher strength. Even if the school is empty till 2 o'clock, you can't have the whole school running from 8 in the morning to 6 in the evening. We may not have enough teachers on our own. So we'll have to reduce timings. We'll have to work on the logistics of it. We will go along and try and elaborate. I will try and elaborate a little more on it. But these are just a few suggestions. You could also have some classes coming on certain days, other classes coming on certain days. When we do reopen post-pandemic, of course, we will be starting first with the higher secondary students, then gradually after a week. This is the plan of the HRD so far. They still have to roll it out. I'm just going by what I've heard in meeting rooms from the Secretary of Education, Ms. Anita Karwal, one of the webinars that I attended. This was one of the things that they are working on. They are putting together a common document that will be circulated to schools, which will come to us from the center, guidelines to follow for reopening of schools, safety, hygiene. All these guidelines are being worked upon. However, friends, we have to follow our state guidelines also. There will be certain guidelines that will come from the center, but depending on which state, which district, which taluka you are in, the education officer of that region will also have his or her own set of guidelines that will be shared with us shortly as we come closer to reopening of schools. So these are just a few suggestions. There must be, when we work this out, the core committee. I'm going to keep referring to the core committee. And just to make it clear for those, I'm just repeating myself for those of you who joined in later, because when we started this session, friends, we were 60 principals and school heads who were here. Right now, we are 80, so I'm assuming some of us have joined in as I have started. So just to make it clear, when we do start schools, I'm going to keep referring to the core committee. When I say the core committee, it means representatives, key representatives of all areas of the school running. So in your core committee, you will have a few people from the management. Principal definitely will be there. There will be some key teaching staff members, some key admin staff members. You will also need to take into your core committee your transport, the key transport person, because that also becomes, even if it is a private transport, if it's part of the school, yes, definitely they have to be in the core committee. But even if it is an outsourced resource that we are using, they will have to be part of the plan because they are responsible for taking back our students. So you have to form this core committee. While the core committee works, we will need to make a clear, sensible list of do's and don'ts in inclusion to what is coming to us from the school education department. We will get a list of do's and don'ts from the school education department. Besides that, based on what my school restrictions are, what my limited resources are, I will need to add in the do's and don'ts. I will need to tweak the do's and don'ts that come to me from the school education department. Also, the district education officers could make revisions based on local context, what I shared with you. You need to make sure, now please remember, when this comes to us from the center, from the district education officers, they are going to be extremely cautious. They are going to lay down very, very stringent rules in the best interest of the community. Now, as people belonging to the school, we need to ensure that we do not spread panic, fear, or stigma related to COVID-19. As a community, we need to work towards spreading awareness. A lot of our schools are in rural places where it's very easy for fear and stigma to spread like a wildfire. We need to keep a check on it. We need to constantly apprise parents, students, our staff members how to deal with the COVID situation, how to understand. Like I said right at the beginning of the session, it is not a time to be fearful. It is a time to understand the situation. The more we understand it, the more fearless we will become, the less fearful we will be. So we need to understand that ourselves, and we also need to communicate to the larger community. There has to be continuous communication with parents and community on the redesigned school processes. If schools are going to begin in August, friends, we need to start communicating with parents and students by mid-July. We need to start communicating with our staff members as of next week. We need to start building policies. We need to start assigning roles, responsibilities, delegate duties. We need to engage even our high school students to take responsibilities when schools reopen. Students have always risen to such occasions. I remember when there were floods in Kerala, one of my teaching groups in Kerala, one of the teachers who shared with me the way students of class 11 and 12 got together in this really tiny district of Kerala and helped reach resources, reach food packets, stationery and books to children who had lost it. They not just contributed as donations, but they helped, they were ground helpers, grassroots level work that students of class 11 and 12, young children aged 16, 17 who were working with the other community workers to deal with the flood situation. I'm sure in this situation also, how much ever we may talk about our students being boisterous, our students being so different, lacking respect, but trust me, in situations like this, our children will rise up and they will hold hands with us and work for the betterment of the community. So it's time to start communication with your staff as we come closer to reopening of schools. Build relationships. I love the video that was shared by Father Varghese this morning as we were waiting for all the participants to join us. And one of the things in that, when it was about principles, the first video that he shared, it had this thing of building communications, building communities. So we need to start doing that as we move towards reopening of schools. So when schools reopen, the first thing, like even what Bishop Ji shared, the first priority in all our minds has to be health and safety guidelines. Now this has to be simple, sustainable processes. What do I mean by sustainable processes? We have to find ways and means that over a period of time you can continue, because the world is changing. It's not a temporary situation and we are never ever going to get back to the old normal, which is why the last section of my presentation, the last 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to spend on the new normal. So when we design health and safety guidelines, we must keep in mind that it has to be a sustainable process. It has to be a process that we're going to follow for a long time to come. Most important, clean and disinfect. Please do a deep clean. Because of the COVID situation, when I say deep clean, I hope you are all sitting with pens and notepads. You can take down some keywords and you can use these keywords to, after the session, go back to Google and read up. There's a difference in just cleaning and disinfecting. Deep clean is more detailed. Please read up on it. We need to do that. Classrooms, especially water and sanitation facilities, they have to be cleaned at least once every day. I'm sure most of these practices we're already following in the schools, but in the given situation, we have to do it even more stringently. Where earlier we were cleaning using only disinfectants, now we're going to be using a lot of sanitizers also. Especially when we're cleaning, we have to keep in mind which surfaces that are touched by many people. For example, doorknobs, railings, desks, sports equipment, yes, toys, the teaching and learning aids, your projectors in the classroom, your duster, all of these things we need to constantly remember to clean up at the end of the day. In between, you can assign a 10 minutes time for everything to be cleaned up. So we'll need to set up, lay out an entire timetable for cleaning and disinfecting time to time. We must have a thermal screening for all, compulsory to wear masks at all times. Now, this is definitely going to be your first guideline that will any which ways come to us from the center. Hand washing should be mandatory during breaks. Hand sanitizers everywhere in the classrooms, in the play areas. Yes, it is extremely challenging for us to keep track, which is why I said we also need to engage students. Just like we give children, we have monitors for the blackboard, we have monitors to collect books. We will need to have a class representative, a student class representative who will take care of health and safety in the classroom. Now, this is something you can do from classes 3, 4 upwards. Of course, for pre-primary classes 1 and 2, it's going to be the responsibility of the teacher. Food and stationery sharing has to be definitely completely stopped. We cannot allow food and stationery shopping when schools reopens. We will have to monitor and supervise to ensure that does not happen. What can we do for physical distancing practices? We need to have a staggered beginning and end of the school day. Now, this is also a recommendation that I'm likely to see, which will come to us from the district education officer. If not, we will need to implement this, where you have not all your students will come in at 7 a.m. You will have classes maybe 5 and 6. Again, when you work on the logistics, we will have to look at the location of the classes. Based on location, you can call in students at staggered timings, maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, depending on the strength of the students in those classes. You have fewer students, you can keep a smaller staggered timing. Large volumes of students, you'll have to keep little more staggered timing. We will definitely need to cancel assemblies. We can have classroom assemblies over the public addressing system, or we'll have to just do individual class assemblies. Sports, games, other events which create crowded conditions, we will need to have it in a controlled manner. I'm not saying we will stop games and sports, but we may need to restrict audiences. Certain games which call for physical proximity will definitely need to be put on hold. Maybe table tennis can be possibly be played, because you definitely maintain individual games which allow physical distancing. Probably you could allow, but largely for some time keep it on hold. Teach and model creating space. Now, when we talk about physical distancing and we expect students to follow physical distancing, teachers, principals, we will ourselves also need to put it in practice, because children do more by seeing, less by listening. So when they see us maintaining physical distance, they will automatically follow it. A lot of the habits, a lot of things that we do, using your elbow to open the door. Yes, when children see us doing it, they are going to follow it. Yes, simple things like cleaning your hands, sanitizing your hands with minimal use of sanitizers. The way you do, students are going to copy us. So we need to be aware of giving them the right model. Wherever possible, we need to increase airflow and ventilation, put up signs which are encouraging students for good hand and respiratory hygiene practices, ensure garbage is taken off on a regular basis, disposed of safely, ensure even your class 4 workers are equipped with all the safety norms. Make sure they're all having gloves, ensure they have masks. This is where, when I said we have to rework our finances, yes, it is going to be a task for us, for our accounts teams to work on this, but it is the need of the hour. And this is something you can keep making notes of. So if, God forbid, but if you have parent bodies that will come to you to defer payment of fees, you can express to them, these are the challenges, these are the preparations the school is doing to ensure safety for the students. Hence, if you may have lesser hours in the school, your students may have fewer hours in school, but yet we are compensating by making those few hours absolutely safe and secure, and we are investing a whole lot in the online teaching learning. So these are things we need to make a note of, make a list of, document all of this so that you have all of this if you have to call for a parent teachers meeting and explain the expenses. Collaborate with health officials in case you have suspected cases. I'm sure all our schools have a doctor on call, but please coordinate with your doctors on call. Ensure that they have all the ready necessary equipment, all the necessary tools in case of a situation where they will need to do either testing or isolation or quarantining. Make sure in the school also you do allocate a separate room in case of suspected cases immediately to isolate till the child is taken home. Child or staff member, it could be anybody. So make sure we keep that also in mind. Most importantly, friends, we need to organize sensitization and training sessions for our students, staff, and parents. It's really unfortunate sometimes. So we have a mix of people. We are a nation of all kinds of people. So we have some who are extremely worried, extremely anxious. In the last 15 days have been most unfortunate for me, even at a personal level, where friends of friends, young, really young people, 35, 40, who were identified with corona, who were hospitalized, and out of just fear were not able to combat COVID-19 and have lost their lives. Yes, friends, it's not just the corona that's taking lives. It is fear. It is complication of other physical challenges due to a mental situation of fear that is taking lives today. We need to sensitize our students, our parents, our staff about how to deal with the situation, how to deal with COVID-19, even if somebody turns out to be a positive corona case. We need to assure them that it is not a death situation. You will come out of it. Yes, if we go with a positive attitude, everything can be overcome. We need to give them that assurance. So you have one group, one set of people who are extremely anxious. We need to assure them that things are under control and you will be safe. You have another set of people who are like, nothing can happen to me. Yes? Oh, what a big fuss this is. Now, these people, you need to tell them it is a fuss because it is serious. Nothing may happen to you, but it is most horrific if you are going to be the cause of someone else's loss. So while nothing may happen to you, you still need to take care because you are part of society, you are part of the community, and you have a certain responsibility to the society. Yesterday, when I'm sure some of you would have got these WhatsApp messages of when Mumbai, yesterday was the first day of our partial opening of the lockdown, and where they said, we were told by the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Mr. Uddhav Thackeray, that you can start your small activities as walks, don't go in crowds. And you had the entire crowd at Marine Lines, which is a prime sea location in South Mumbai, and you had almost half of the crowd on the streets for a morning walk. And out of those 70% of them were over 50, 55. So you do have people who will throw all caution to the wind. We need to remind them about the seriousness of this pandemic. So you will need to be the means, the medium to inform both kinds of people. One set of people assuring them to be strong, to be positive. The other set of people reminding them to be careful, to be cautious. We will need to take on that role and responsibility. That was all about safety and health guidelines. I'm going to give you a few seconds, friends. If you have any questions, you can make a note of it. You can start posting it in the chat box, or I would suggest write it down in your notepad. You can type it up and put it in the chat box as we go along. In the end, I will take all the questions. But I don't want to rush into the syllabus because you may have some thoughts about health and safety guidelines. I'm just going to give you a few seconds to make a note of if you have any questions, even your suggestions. If you've already worked out some great ideas, please feel free to share it with the rest of the fraternity. If you have some great ideas what you're going to do in your school, put it in the chat box. Let us all benefit by this wonderful webinar arranged by the MGM Group of Schools. All right. So this was about health and safety guidelines. Let's look at student learning. Like I said in the beginning, this is going to be a truncated year. We've already lost about a month and a half of the academic year. And given that the schools are going to reopen in August, we may lose another 2 months, June and July. And if it's going to be after 15th August, it's going to be 2.5 months. So we've nearly lost 4 months of a academic yearly calendar, which means we will definitely need to redefine our syllabus. We will need to cut down on our syllabus. How can we do that? Key learning outcomes for every class must be defined. So you have one group, which is your core committee, which is going to look at the operations of reopening the school. You will also have an academic team that is going to work on class-wise cutting down of syllabus. Now you will have members that overlap these different groups because the principal is going to be part of the core committee. The principal is also going to be part of the academic team because he is going to have an overview of the entire cutting down of syllabus. Some rules for classes 9, 10, 11, 12, we will get the guidelines, the syllabus will be rolled out to us from the various boards that we are following. But for pre-primary and classes 1 to 8, it could be left to the schools to decide on the syllabus cut down. So you will need to focus, when you work on cutting down the syllabus, you need to focus on key learning outcomes, and this will be based on what is critical for students to learn during the year, based on which the transition to the next academic year will be smooth. So you will have to, so you can't have a group of grade 5 teachers sitting and doing the syllabus without looking at what's in grade 6, because you will have to equip children with the requirement, the foundation of what is needed for them to cope with the syllabus of class 6. So if I'm working on the syllabus of class 5, I will first look at what is covered in class 6, and to reach here, what is it that they definitely need to know in class 5. For every subject, it will need to be worked out that way. Whatever is realistically possible given the situation, we will have to put it on table. The revised syllabus has to focus on core learning outcomes for every class, and key parts of the textbook has to be identified. So you will need to, you cannot just jot down that these are the learning outcomes for history that children have to accomplish at the end of class 7. You will have to sit with the history textbook and mark out lessons, parts of lessons. You may choose to do all lessons. Some subjects will be such that you may need to touch all the lessons, but there are chunks within the lesson that can be left out. So you'll need to do a lot of detailed planning when it comes to revising the syllabus. Classroom process must maximize student learning during school hours and use this interaction as a basis for follow-up or further practice at home. Like I said, when we reopen, we may have fewer hours, fewer teaching learning hours with every batch of students. In that case, we need to ensure that the classroom processes are maximized so that you can, probably classroom processes will include difficulty solving, doubt solving, all of that, explanation of challenging concepts, brainstorming, discussions with students of those in the higher classes. With the young learners, classroom time can be used largely for explaining concepts, discovery method of learning. All that can be done in class, where you need a lot of face-to-face engagement with our learners. But you have to plan your lessons for classroom processes in such a way that ample work by the student can be done independently at home, which is what I will cover when we talk about flipped classroom. How it works out, I will be covering largely in that. So when we say about dividing time, classroom and back home, what are the different learning models we are using? There's something called the hybrid learning model. We are going to be implementing part of that. We are going to also be using flipped classrooms. We are going to have online personalized assessments. We may not have time to do a lot of class tests, formative assessments. Of course, the board has stopped the CCE, yet we continue with a lot of class tests. I know most of us are continuing with it because it ensures continuous teaching learning with the children. So we may need to take some of our tests online. We're going to look at how you can do that. I'm going to share a lot of web links, which will help your teachers to create these personalized online assessments. We'll also need to ensure it's a student-driven education. Now, this is also a fantastic time. I always have believed in this. Any difficult situation gives root for new learning. Now, this difficult situation has come in, and it is given all of us educators a situation where on a platter, we can change all our teaching practices, all the strategies which we've been struggling to do. With the advent of the digitalization, we may have spent so much getting our classrooms converted into smart classes, yet when we are going around the school as principals, we do see teachers reading from the textbook. We do see teachers explaining and dictating question answers. All these practices it's been very, very difficult to change the traditional methods of teaching, which have now become redundant, keeping in mind the 21st century learners. Now, this situation has given us that impetus to move to a different teaching methodology. Teachers do not have a second choice. We have to get into the online mode. We have to change our classroom setup to being a teacher-driven learning teaching, becoming a student-centric classroom. All the practices will be reworked, and we're going to see how each one of this works. First and foremost, the hybrid learning model. Now, the hybrid learning model is a combination of face-to-face classroom instruction with computer-based learning. So I could have some amount of face-to-face classroom instruction. While I'm in the classroom, I could use digital content to make the learning happen. I could show PowerPoints, I could use videos, I could use for a language activity, I could use audios. For a science activity, I could show some experiments happening on the screen. Now, this is where I use a computer. This is hybrid learning model. Hybrid teaching is not just a matter of transferring a portion of your traditional course to the web. It doesn't mean I'm just going to put on the internet an explanation, but it involves developing, challenging and engaging learning activities that complement your face-to-face activities. For example, if I'm going to be teaching, say, about the Tundra region, what I will do is either, I could give students the link to a video that I say, I need you all to see this video. When you see this video, I want you to make points on the geographical location, on what you see in the video, how is the climate, what kind of people are there, what animals do you see. It could be a short video on the Tundra region. And the next day when they come to class, I'm going to have a face-to-face brainstorming discussion and then get them into either do a quiz. So part of the teaching learning has happened by the student independently at home. Or it could be in class using the computer, using the smart board. So a combination of using technology and my explanation is what we call a hybrid class. How is a flipped classroom different from a hybrid teaching learning? A flipped classroom is a pedagogical approach in which direct instruction moves from group learning space. Now, in a hybrid class, I have the entire class sitting together and watching a video, and post that I have a face-to-face interaction. Whereas in a flipped classroom, I have content that I am sharing with the students for them to learn at their own space and pace. They can decide where, when they have to learn at their time. It will guide the students. And when they come back to class, they will apply the concepts and engage creatively in the subject matter. In flipped classrooms, students watch or listen to lectures on their own. So I could post a video of something that I'm explaining. A lot of schools across the country, when I have been engaging in doing these online teaching learning sessions for teachers across the country, I found a lot of schools where they do not have digital platforms, because we do have a lot of schools in the rural areas where students may not have access to a laptop or computer, or where you have homes where you may have just one smartphone and you have the parent working from home who may not be able, the child may not be able to come on the online class at the designated time because the parent is working or is on an official call or is doing his own work on the smartphone, right? So in such a situation, I found a lot of schools, a lot of teachers using the asynchronous teaching learning method. So in the online method, you have two approaches. One is the synchronous approach. The other is the asynchronous approach. Synchronous approach is what we are doing right now. It is in real time. As I speak, you hear me. We've used the platform, the Google platform. Through Google Meets, we are having this webinar. Asynchronous method is where I would have put a short video of maybe just health and safety guidelines, and I could have posted it on a WhatsApp group that we can form of all the principals in the group of schools which are present here today. Now that would have been a asynchronous approach. So in a flipped classroom, we're using a lot of asynchronous methods where I would post an audio or a video and children can access it at their own time. They don't have to immediately respond to me. Whereas in a hybrid class, it is more of a synchronous combination, synchronous learning approach using technology and face-to-face class. So this is how you have, these are the different methods now, friends, we will have to inculcate when schools reopen. Because like I said, our timeline has shortened. We have 4 months short of the academic year. Our timings are going to shrink because we will need to maintain some amount of physical distancing as soon as when schools reopen. God willing, as we move on, we may move to a full strength class, but initially we will not be able to do that. So we need to be prepared for limited face-to-face classroom time. In such a scenario, we have to train our teachers to use hybrid teaching learning methods, to try out the flipped classroom. Flipped classroom is not a external resource or a class, it is just a methodology. It's a pedagogical approach where direct instruction from group learning moves to individual learning, and so the group space is transformed into dynamic, interactive learning environment where the educator guides the students as they apply concepts. A lot of individual responses can be given when you do flipped classrooms. These are some popular platforms that can be used for online assessments. Now, yesterday I was in a very interesting discussion with one of my colleagues who is working on creating, she's been doing a lot of training for teachers for assessments, online assessments. And when I was discussing this with her, typically, I'm also a parent. I have 2 young children. I have a 17-year-old daughter and a 22-year-old son. And a lot of their learning these days is happening online. So, and my daughter has been appearing for a lot of tests online. And I have been a teacher all my life. And in the last couple of years, I've also been a research associate and a principal. Now, as a parent, as a teacher, my first apprehensions when tests were being done online, isn't it easy for children to copy? Can't they copy? Now, these are some methods that they are using. I have seen how my daughter has been giving a lot of, she's preparing for a CLAT exam. So she goes for she's attending a lot of online CLAT preparation classes. And every 10 days, she's been appearing for some or the other paper. Now, the way they do it is the test comes live online for a fixed period. The student has to immediately log in, and it's only in that period he can answer the test. The assessment is created in such a manner that if the child is going to spend time looking for the answers, or even if he's kept everything ready there, he will still not be able to complete it if he tries to copy. You can also have online assessments which are completely based on application. Now, that is another thing that the COVID-19 situation has impacted us positively. About, I think, 6 or 8 months ago, CBSE took a call and said the paper pattern, the board paper pattern is going to change for 2021. It is going to be more of application-based questions. There are going to be less of lots and more of HOTS, higher order thinking questions. Now, all of this can be tested online, and you can be rest assured there's no way children can copy. This is also for online assessments. You can also partner with parents for supervision and monitoring. Yet, what I have presented to you in these various web links are ways and means to create online assessments where you have minimal chances of cheating that can take place. We do have a time restriction, so I cannot go into details. We can have an entire online assessment session at a later time when we come closer to that. Right now, our focus is on empowering all the key people in our schools to successfully reopen and get as close to running all the departments of the school as smoothly as possible. And one of the departments is our exam department. So whoever, the teachers who are in charge of putting together the papers can be taught, can be trained. You can identify teachers for this, give them responsibility, ask them to explore these various links that I'm sharing. These are just some, and these are not, these are some that I have tried, tested, hence I can, suggest these, but there are way many more. I am not endorsing any of this. I'm only suggesting these because these are what I have tried in a live classroom. So you can share this with teachers whom you can delegate to look into this and create online assessments for your schools. Coming to key responsibilities now. I have looked at the key personnel in the school and then worked out key responsibilities to each one of them. I'll begin with the management. I'm going to get into details of each one's key responsibilities. Again, before I get into the key responsibilities, I'm going to give you a few seconds to make a note of anything, your takeaways from the student learning that I dealt with. Yes, I am going to keep recapping what I have been doing because this is a very, very a topic that is extremely vast. Post-COVID challenges in schools, there are so many aspects that come under it. It's a huge umbrella. I'm trying my best to do as much justice to it as possible. Hence, I will keep going back. There was one section where I dealt with safety and health. I gave you time to make a note of what things you need to take. Please use those seconds that I'm giving you in between to list out what you're going to do back in your school. So we completed safety and health. We looked at student learning. When we spoke about student learning, we spoke about hybrid learning teaching practices. We spoke about flipped classrooms. We spoke about online assessments. Also, it is time for us to move our classrooms to becoming more student-centric and not teacher-driven. Today's, when we reopen again, we need to look at, which is why I am constantly saying the COVID-19 is something, it's an impetus for us to change our teaching strategies. So you can take a few seconds to quickly note down your takeaways from the student learning section of this webinar. Okay, I hope you've all made a note of it. I am having questions here. How can we take the school neighborhood into confidence before school reopening? A lot of meetings. You can't have meetings where you gather people, but yes, you can create WhatsApp groups. I'm addressing Ms. Leena Jacobs' question here. You can create WhatsApp groups. I'm sure all of us in our schools have our PTA bodies. We have our PTA, that is Parent-Teacher Association bodies. Identify parents, and within our fraternity, I can share this. I have been on various such bodies, and I know we can identify proactive parents. You do have sometimes those trouble parents also. We need to turn them around. If you cannot turn them around, this is over my years of experience, I found that it's very difficult as a teacher or a principal or as the founder of the school. It's difficult for me to turn around a parent. I always use another parent to turn around the parent. So you could make these small groups on WhatsApp and start communicating with them. But you will do that in keeping your management in sync with it. Yes, you take school neighborhood into confidence. Yeah, so that's the best way you can take them into confidence, by engaging them in your plans. But first, finish your entire planning within the core group, along with the management. Identify the parents who will be involved in your group of community helpers for you when school reopens. Community helpers here are not our pre-primary, what we teach children, but when I say community helpers, it is people from the from our school community, which includes our parents also, to help build the community. Okay, could I share the slides? It would be beneficial. Yes, Father Jobby Peter, I will be absolutely happy to share the entire presentation. I will mail it to Father Varghese, and he can disseminate and send it across to all of you. I will be extremely happy if you can take it up, share it as much as possible. That is the need of the hour. Suggestions regarding apps for safe online classes. Okay, Miss Leah, I will try and send you. Do put an drop me an email. I will share my email ID with you, and I will try and send you a list of apps that can be used for online teaching learning. And I'm assuming you're looking at free downloadable apps. So I will see what I can find, and I'll make a list and send it across, mail it across to you. Yes? All right, let's look at key responsibilities now. I am hoping as this webinar has been progressing, all of us are feeling a little lighter, a little in control, because that has been my objective. While I was working on creating this PowerPoint the last couple of days, my whole objective has been, as much as possible, friends, to make it simple and easy. I know we shoulder a huge responsibility towards the hundreds of students who come into our care. And it's not just students, it's all the workers who are there, who are working towards the well-being of these students. It's also the parents that these students go back to, the families that these children go back to, that we are responsible to ensure all of this happens in the most safe and positive manner. Let's look at the role, the responsibility of the management. In this situation, management responsibilities largely are infrastructure. So you need to ensure safe environments, safe buildings, physical. We need to have a good budget for safe practices in school. We need to install technology in our school. That is the need of the hour. You cannot cut corners when it comes to technology at this point. I know we are badly strapped. Our economy is an all-time low right now. You will need to take help. I know a lot of schools where alumni have gotten back. I was delighted to interact with this school, GVM school in Goa. It's a group of school, and I was interacting with one of the directors, and it was such an overwhelming feeling for me when he shared with me that some of his alumni who have gone on from the school, passed out, it's a very, very old school, who have in their alumni members who are IAS officials, who've gone on to IITs, well placed in life, who are coming back to the school and making their contributions to help. A lot of IITians and IIMs from the school who are putting in, systems and processes out of their own pockets to help the school to bridge the technological gap. So we can do that. I know some of our schools here who have joined us are age-old schools. This is the time to build your alumni, hold hands with the alumni and work towards technology, because a lot of our students, in fact, one of the seminars, webinars that I attended, again, it was a fantastic thing to see this professor at Harvard Business School, a child who had passed out of a state board school in Kerala and who is now a professor at Harvard Business School, and how he is doing remote teaching from Harvard for a couple of schools in Kerala across his villages. All he's done is provided these children with smartphones and he's connecting with them. So we can involve, I think that is something where the management can work out how you use your alumni for technology. For training, you can have your alumni train your teachers to do online teaching learning. You'll need to invest. If you do not have alumni, you can still engage external trainers to conduct training sessions for your teachers, and your teachers can then train your students. So this is going to be the key responsibility for the management. Infrastructure, budget for safe practices, updating, upgrading technology, and training for teachers, students, both. Now the role of the principal, huge, massive. You have to work out all the logistics, the million timetables that we need to work out, right from timings of the school for various batches, various sections, teacher duty allotments, looking after the admin, the fee collection, the admissions, a whole lot of things. You will have to work out all the logistics. You'll have to empower your staff, delegate work. Here your role is going to be more of a planner, less of an implementer. Empower your staff to do the task, and make sure you can communicate trust to your staff so that they do the task given to them in the most responsible manner. The principal also needs to communicate with parents. I was speaking to a principal in a very old school, ICSE school in Pune, day before yesterday. And we were just discussing how she managed to get her online classes moving. And she was one who faced a lot of feedback from parents who were saying they wanted to differ from paying the fees. And then she said she organized a complete parent orientation online, where parents logged in from their mobile phones, and online the principal addressed the parents on what were the changes that she was doing in the school for learning, teaching to go on unhampered. So she shared with the parents how they are using Microsoft Teams. They have taken this entire platform to make sure all students continue with their learning. This was largely students of grade 9, 10, 11, 12. And she said by the end of the meeting, by the end of the orientation, she was expecting a lot of parents to come back with this whole fee thing. And she told me, Smitha, I was so surprised there wasn't a single parent who asked me for a deferment to pay the fees. That is the power of the principal when he addresses the parents. Don't wait for the parents to come to you with questions. You face the parents with solutions to anticipated problems, questions, trouble that you might expect parents to make. So you will need to start communicating with parents. You will need to take an overview of the curriculum and look at the assessment schedules, whether the assessments will happen in classroom, in school, how it's going to online, whether in classroom, in school, or whether it will happen online. You'll have to see that. I've also included teacher over here because it will help all of us principals to take back to school and allocate these responsibilities to teachers, to identify. This is for teachers of classes for pre-primary up to class 8, to identify the syllabus, how they're going to truncate the syllabus, break down the syllabus, pick up chunks with key learning objectives and outcomes, work on lesson planning, take tech support to students. Now, a lot of our students are from rural background, which means we need to reach out to these students. Yes, we need to connect with these students. The only way we can do it is by engaging our teachers. How do we do this? Teachers form. Now, this is a practice I'm sharing with you that I found happened in a school at Amravati. A lot of children were from the tribal areas, very difficult. But yes, one good thing is with Digital India, most households at least have one smartphone. Yes, so using that, the school was able to, when the teacher created small student groups of 20, 25, every teacher took charge of different groups. One teacher had more than one group. Obviously, because we do have numbers in our classrooms which range from 40 to 65. So as a teacher, I may have 3 groups of class 7th A or 4 groups of class 2B, depending on the strength of students in each class. So in each of these groups, WhatsApp groups that were done, the teacher was constantly posting her audios, her videos, giving students instructions what to do. She was posting videos in their WhatsApp, how they need to go into the mobile, even to come on a WhatsApp video call. WhatsApp allows you 8 people to connect on a visual meeting. So a teacher can take 8 students at a time. If she takes about 20 minutes in a span of about 3 to 4 hours, she could have covered the entire class. Now these are with limited resources because they may not have access to online learning platforms. So this is how teachers can take tech support to students in rural areas, which means we will have to empower our teachers. Elaborating on the role of the management needs to ensure all aspects of the organization are adapting to the new changes demanded. I already spoke about some of this. Finances take into account new costs that will be incurred for health and safety and technology. Human resources management can take a call on teams that can work from home. The minimal human engagement that you will have in school, that much safe environment you will create. So you can identify what teams can work from home. You could have part of your admin staff. So you can have half of the admin staff coming 3 days a week and the other half coming the other 3 days a week. But the half that stays at home is also working from home. You'll need to identify who does that, how they do that. You'll need to invest in technology with a long-term view and decide on tech interventions. We will need to bring in a lot of learning management systems within our school premises. The management will also have to look at the parent-student satisfaction angle, because that is the whole core of our school business. You have to offer online education, ensuring you follow a human-centered approach. What do you mean by a human-centered approach? Like I said, we need to be aware. Managements need to be aware where your schools reach out. What is the socio-economic background of students who come to you? So do not expect every child to be you need to be conscious, aware of the limitations of the students and whatever the resources that they may have exposure to at home. So you will need to consider that and roll out the teaching learning methods. You will also need to keep a close track of regulatory changes and comply with them. Like I said, which zone your school is in, you'll have to keep track of it. Make sure that your plans are in action as per the regulatory that has been defined for your district, your region, your area, or the place where your school is. So you have to look into finance, the human resources, technology, parent-student satisfaction, and the regulatory. Now, role of principal is extremely crucial, which is why I have put it in a red box. Yes, very, very critical, because the principal is the link to the management, and the principal has to also overlook the work of the entire school staff, not just teachers, all the various arms of your faculty, your teaching people, your teaching staff, your admin staff, your accounts department, your counselors, your transport people, the canteen people, all of it. You are also looking after communication with parents and definitely the best interest, well-being of your students. Now, when the principal is working with the management, you have to ensure you enable information sharing and dialogue around preparing and planning for school opening. Make sure you are updating the management with your plans. You're justifying your plans to the management. When you're with the teachers, please remember teachers are central to good education. Make them your allies in this situation. They form a critical part of your team. So support them to build their capability to handle this situation. And parents are our partners in teaching learning for the student. So communicate with parents, highlight what are the common challenges that you anticipate and ways to address them. Please understand, it's only if you partner with parents will we be able to successfully reopen schools in a post-COVID situation. So it is time to start communicating with parents. Please make your plans with your respective teams, management teams, your staff teams. Have a plan A, B, C, and then start discussing it with parent bodies. Do not disperse it to the entire parent community. Take key parents who are positive, proactive in the community to then and give them the responsibility, because they are your parent representatives. Give them the responsibility to disseminate information. Allow for WhatsApp groups or online groups. You can have Skype groups who can connect with you for any direct communication. Make sure you're available to, sort out, rule out any rumors, any ill will that's being spread around regarding the school. I have included the role of teachers in this because they are going to play a very, very critical role when schools reopen. They are your grassroots workers who are going to be in touch. For teachers, because they are going to be central to bringing normalcy back in such a difficult time, you will have to make them an integral part of your plan. You will have to first disperse their own fear, uncertainty, anxiety. Now, my experience as a principal who has helped in difficult situations when I was heading schools in Mumbai, one school in Mumbai, I remember we had this huge flood, the July 26th flood that hit Mumbai. And yes, schools were in function. It was just the second week of school having reopened, and the amount of anxiety, fear, and it's not a single person's job. Believe me, I couldn't have done it without the help of my staff. And I found in that moment, the only thing that helped me tide over was when I trusted my teachers, gave them the responsibilities, allocated tasks to them, and gave them the freedom to make informed, reasoned decisions. That is what we need to do with teachers. Of course, you can't do this with all teachers, but I'm sure all of us have our key teachers whom you can trust to take responsible decisions. So you can support them, help them, empower them to help you tide over this situation. We also need to look at teacher professional development. That has to continue because teachers are going to now be taking care of face-to-face classes and your online classes. So as much as possible, try to get their training done through webinars. It is important to address issues of their social and emotional well-being, learners and teachers. Please understand this is a period when all of us are going through different challenges, different anxieties. We do know right now a lot of us are facing plenty of financial restraint. People are losing jobs, salaries are not coming in, there are pay cuts. Our means of living have expanded so much and suddenly there's a curtail. Please understand their situations. Of course, it's not possible for us to solve everybody's problem. It's impossible. We cannot do that. But yes, we can be empathetic. Yes, you can give them a listening ear. You can give them courage to face their situation. You can give them confidence to brave through the difficult time. And I think that becomes a crucial role. Besides the operations, besides the delegation and all of this, we need to make sure we are also taking care of the humane touch that needs to be given to this entire COVID situation. For teachers, retraining of teachers is important. We'll need to retrain teachers with technology. We'll need to equip them with the new age assessments. We will have to do customized interventions, what I just spoke about. We cannot have a one-size-fits-all attitude. Everybody will work in this manner. No. Like I said, like you have people of different kind, you may have teachers of different kinds. Yes, some teachers are very cool, relaxed, they don't want to take any caution. Some who are overtly cautious, you will need to strike a balance across all your teachers. You will have to do one-on-one. The teachers will have to do one-to-one mentoring with students, where when they go online, when they do face-to-face classes, they'll have to identify children who need help back home, and they will have to do a one-on-one mentoring. You will need to train teachers, equip teachers to be able to do that. We need, like I said, it's time to start engaging parents somewhere around mid-July or from July. You will need to start communicating with parents, engage with them. This is the time when you should expect greater collaboration of parents with the school. You will need to communicate on an ongoing basis, keeping parents informed of all new developments in the institution, right from your timings to points of contact in school. You're going to have a horde of parents, especially pre-primary and primary section, anxious parents who are going to be concerned about the safety of the children. Or you can have parents who couldn't care less, who are sending their children in herds only to relieve to send them back to you. Yes, you will need to ensure you inform parents so that you can bring them all on the same page and everybody interacts with the school, responds to the policies laid down by the school in a manner that they are expected to. So make sure you inform them of all the new developments in the institution. We also need to equip parents with the learning tools because they will need to become learning mentors for their children at home, especially with younger students. We will need to help parents engage through the parents with the young learners in the pre-primary and classes 1 and 2 up to 3, 4 also sometimes. We'll need to engage parents with them. Yes, I'm just taking a few seconds to also keep glancing at the Q&A. Parents are using the WhatsApp group to organize themselves and grouping to go against the school. What is the way out? Yes, I have been part of such groups when I've been a parent, okay? And I have seen how badly, really badly, parents can talk about the school despite all our best efforts to do everything possible, keeping in mind the best interest of the student. Now, how can we deal with this? We need to identify a few parents who are in that group. We need to contact them on a one-on-one basis, gain their confidence, share information with them about practices we are following in the best interest of the student. It is not to get a good name for the school. We are doing it because we want the best for the student. We need to identify, it's not easy, Miss Reggie. It's extremely challenging, but it's not impossible. We can intersperse the group through another positive, proactive parent. It's in a parent group, even if you can identify 2 or 3 parents with whom you can, whom you can connect with and turn them around and help them. See, you may not be able to make all of them speak good about the school. You will have a certain percentage of parents who are always talking ill about the school. These are the disgruntled lot, yes, who are unhappy with themselves and therefore create unhappy situations wherever they go. It's impossible to turn all of them around, but yes, you can maintain some amount of equilibrium by getting a few parents influenced into thinking well for the school. So maybe that is one strategy you can try. Anyone else has any other suggestion? At the end of this session, when we have suggestions, opinions coming in, please feel free to use the chat box. All my respected principals, teachers here who are connected today on this platform, please do use the chat box if you have any other strategy to deal with this. Yes, this is a very pertinent problem across cities, villages, anywhere where there's a mobile phone and a WhatsApp. You can expect parent WhatsApp groups who are there only to speak ill about the school. You do have positive parent groups also who are using those groups to spread good things about the school. It goes both ways. But we need to find ways and means. It's not possible to clean them out. But yes, some of them you can intervene with a few of them, connect with some of them. Through their help, you can disseminate correct information. If they're spreading rumors on that WhatsApp group, 1 or 2 parents who are part of the group, you can give them the correct information to disperse the rumor that they are floating on that group. I hope to some amount it can help you. Yes? Yes, thank you, Vikal Rao, sir. All right. Also, so I have spoken about health and safety. I've spoken about learning, student learning when schools reopen. I have individually spoken about each one's responsibility. I've spoken about how we can engage teachers, what we can do with parents. Now I'm going to spend just about 5 minutes. We're almost close to, we've, I think, overstretched the time. I just have a few more slides. I'm just going to spend 5 minutes on how we can support the COVID-19 effort. Father Varghese, with your permission,
Yes.
Have I extended my time?
Yes, ma'am. Some have a meeting at 12:15, so we can move on quickly to the discussion also. Okay.
So I'm quickly going to wrap this up. We just have to ensure that we support the COVID-19 effort. As a school, we are crucial partners when it comes as teachers, principals. A school is a very key aspect of the society. So let us use our schools to make sure we are building awareness in society. Let us ensure messages, key messages on health, safety, wellness, and hope is disseminated among our students, our teachers, and our parents who form a critical part of the community that we are living in. The new normal, friends, this is going to be the new normal. The normal is not going to be what we were before the pandemic. We are going to be creating a new normal in the education area, where we are going to have online classes in small groups. We're going to have online doubt clearing. We're going to do a lot of personalized counseling. We're going to have frequent parent communication, because a lot of learning is going to happen at home, which will mean more parent communication. We will have to do virtual teacher training, because we want teachers to come abreast with whatever the latest pedagogies in teaching learning that will be engaged. We're going to have lots of virtual conferences like this one right here now, online practice tests and assessments, and for students, it's going to be a whole lot of independent, personalized learning. So that's going to be the new normal. These are again a whole list of links that I have shared, which is a framework for reopening schools by UNICEF. You can take a screenshot of this if you've logged in from your laptop or your mobile phone. You still can take a screenshot. Do not worry, I will also be sharing the entire presentation with Father Varghese, and I'm sure he will disseminate to all of you so that you can make use of this. What I have shared over here are links to the framework set by UNICEF. We also have an action plan for COVID-19 prevention and control in schools, which has been put together by the WHO, UNICEF, and the CIFRC. I've also put links to the alternate academic calendar designed by the NCERT for primary, upper primary, and secondary schools. This can be shared with your teachers when they are sitting with the curriculum changes, syllabus changes. Yes, it's time to come in. Some questions I've answered. I'm not sure if I answered all of the questions. If there are any questions that I have missed, this is a good time to post it again. Principals, if there are any more questions. Okay, some parents raise problems in buying textbooks, though the list of books were announced in advance. Yes. If the challenge to buy textbooks is that the stationery shops haven't opened up, it's a problem. We need to try and see how the digital content can go to them. I know Orient Black has most of its work available on their digital platform. You can have access to them on that. However, if the stationery shops have opened up and the book list has been given out, arrange for the books. If there are financial restraints, you can help to some extent by sharing digital content. I'm sure a lot of publication houses have at least made the beginning few chapters digitally available. So you can share this with the parents, and this is how you can confidence of parents, as where I was talking about the human touch. But if they're not buying the textbooks, if they're not available and they're not able to get it, you can get providing digital books. If the bookshops are open and they're not buying it because of financial crisis, then also you can provide them the digital support. But yes, you will have to tell the parents that eventually they have to buy the books, because I'm sure you will not get the entire book on the digital platform. Even if you get it, please explain to the parents it will hamper the learning of the child. It's not possible for you to learn throughout the year using a digital book. So, these are the only solutions I can think of. Few digital things to tide over this difficult time, but eventually they will have to buy the. You can work together to start publishing in the news channel, not to collect the school fees and tuition fees. Parents are confused how to answer. Please create a platform where you can share information based on decision taken by your school. You can create your own platform to send schools because every school is taking its own decision. I know some schools have given parents time, deferred payments. Some schools have rigidly, because the schools have their own challenges. Salaries have to go out, payments have to be made, rentals have to be paid. So every school is taking, some schools which are run by trusts, the trusts are taking care of, they're emptying their coffers to run the school. So school to school, it may differ. Whatever your school takes a decision, you need to bring all the parents on a common platform and disseminate. It's going to be difficult to, your question is, can we work together to start publishing in the news channel to not to collect school fees? Now, like I said, for some schools, they don't have another way out. They may need to collect the fees. Yes, so it's not possible. I don't think we can have a uniform statement that will go out. Okay, if books are available in the shops, you will have to insist with the parents to buy the books. You could have maybe a small percentage of parents who are financially challenged and genuinely cannot buy the books. You will have to tell the parents, ask the students. We are living in the era of technology. Then you disseminate digital support to the students, because if you give it to one, everybody will say, why do we need to buy a book? But you can tell the parent who can't afford to buy the book, okay, ask your child who has a friend who has bought the book to take pictures, photographs of the lesson that's being taught, and use it till a time you are financially stable, able to buy the book. I mean, these are just ideas, suggestions that I can think of, putting myself in your shoes, what you can tell parents. Yes, those who wish to share your suggestions, please do unmute your mics. Voice your suggestions, opinions, thoughts. Thank you, Father Varghese. That's a very interesting link that Father has shared. He shared a YouTube link on Intro to Google Classroom. It's wonderful. Google Classroom has a lot of features, even features that you can make use of. So please explore Google Classrooms, and it is free. Yes? Okay, I am going to quickly wrap up and hand over to Father Varghese with just one last thought for all of you wonderful people who've been extremely patient despite me overstretching with the time. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity, is what the great Albert Einstein has said. And this truly is one such difficult period, friends, when we have to take this as an opportunity to reach out, connect with students, parents, and change the face of education in India. Yes, all of those who've been cribbing and complaining about education systems, this is a time to bring about that change. This is a time to encourage independent learning, to encourage use of technology in teaching learning, to create creative, innovative students. Let's put our heads together, and I'm sure as a fraternity, we will all walk through it with ease, because at the end of the day, we only and only have goodwill in our hearts for our students. Thank you so much, everybody. This is a great session. I have just shared my email ID on the screen. Those of you who would like any more information on whatever I have shared can write into me. I am going to mail this to Father Varghese. He will definitely make it available to all of you. Thank you so much. I will also type in my email ID and put it in the chat box, because I'm now going to stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Father Varghese. Thank you so much, all of you. Good health, be safe, stay happy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for the wonderful session. Now this time for interaction. If you have any queries, you can post that. Otherwise, you can also share your experiences, how the school was coping with this crisis, and the measures that you have taken for online classes, the challenges that you have faced, and how you are overcoming those struggles. If you can share those things, that would be a great learning for others who are participating.
Good evening, Father, Bishops, Archbishops, and the principals present here. Really, it was a wonderful session, and we could learn so many things of which we are aware, but more enlightening. And we are also in the process of making WhatsApp groups because other online possibility is difficult here, especially I am from Dantewada. And hope that we will be able to make the arrangement for the WhatsApp group because that is only possible. Even that also is difficult because many of the parents are in the villages, and still we are in the process of making WhatsApp groups, and through that we can provide the subject at least for a few months. Then let us see. And the main problem that we are facing is with regard to the fees. Already we have forwarded the group that the schools are not allowed to take the fees, but regarding the salary also is a problem, of which of course you have not mentioned because it differs from state to state. So anyway, it was really useful, and the details I hope that we will be providing to Father, and Father will be supplying to all the schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Bobby.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have 2 points. Thank you, Smitha, for a wonderful presentation, bringing various things and also looking into our ground realities, because most of our schools and in rural areas catering for protection. Many of your suggestions are very valid and we shall take. I have 2 points to suggest to all of us. First thing is that if government asking us not to collect fees, it is unreasonable and tell that we should not be focused to take to the future in various other sectors. We have to think about it. Second thing, I request all the participants here. Smitha mentioned also about the publishers. Publishers are exploiting our students through us, through our principals, through our managers. And therefore, if we your children and we should not become easy victims to these publishers. Don't give in just because of the offers they give. This is a mortal thing for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop. This is one of major problem that we are facing. On one hand, the government asks us not to take a fee during this lockdown period. There are instructions from DOs, the collectors. At the same time, there are instructions from the same authorities that all the staff should be paid. Ma'am, you can't hear you. It's on mute.
Yes, which is why I said it's just not possible. We need to create those parent groups. We need to inform, because we are going to invest so much in the online training, in the online classes that we're going to start even post-COVID situation. And without collecting fees, and we have to continue paying all our staff who are on roll. So it's important to run a school without collecting fees. In fact, Father Marcus, I have a very good video where this has been addressed by one of the principals. I'm going to share that video with you. You can share it with the other principals to disseminate among the parent groups. Yes, those who are saying that they cannot pay the fees or will not pay the fees because children have not been coming to school. It's an excellent video that is throwing light on how schools have continued doing their jobs taken up their responsibility. So were they paying fees only to be, looked after in school, sent away from home? That was not the only reason they were paying fees for. They were paying fees for a lot of learning and care that is also, which was being taken care of in the lockdown situation also. We may not have conducted classes for all, but the school building needs to be maintained for children to come back whenever they have to come back. It's not that the school building is going to look after itself for the months that the school was closed. So these are things that this video covers, and it would be great if the more reach it has, it will throw light as to how you can do it. So you can, I mean, parents who are able and to pay the fees, I really recommend fees. There's no way you can run the school without collecting the fees. And yes, alumni. See how we can engage alumni in helping us with this.
Yes, engaging alumni is a very good option, and also, as ma'am told, we need to engage with our parents. We need to take them into confidence and make them realize that it's only the school building, as someone told the other day, that's being closed. The schooling is on. The schooling we haven't locked down. Only the school building has been locked down. So the teachers are giving online classes and they are preparing for the next session. So we need to, through the medium which we have created for online classes, I think we also can connect with the parents. If obviously if there are 100 parents, 10 or 20 may not be that much very much happy to pay the fee or other things, but we can take with us the parents with a positive attitude, especially in the villages and in the rural areas. Also, we need to understand their difficulties as well. If someone comes with a request that we can't pay as of now, we should take that request with a humane approach. And as ma'am said, we also need to look up at online assessment options from now onwards. The principals can Google over about this option. We can also arrange some training programs later. But first, our priority should be to take care of the safety measures of the kids as well as of the staff. So within a couple of I think weeks, we would be getting some instructions from the government, but we need to discuss various options. But otherwise, we would be caught sleeping. That shouldn't happen. And dear sisters or fathers, anyone has to share their views, it's time. We have overstretched the time a little bit, but this is a serious issue and everyone has to take. May I request Bishop, His Grace Dr. Joseph Mar Dionysius, to conclude the question and answer session with his words, and after that we would be having Very Reverend Givaris Ramban, who is also the Vice President of MGM Group of.
Glory to the Almighty God forever and ever. So we are very happy that our education officer, at the same time, the Honorable Secretary of the ACCES, Father Dr. Joshi Varghese, has arranged a very valuable webinar connecting and fellowshipping all the principals and vice presidents of all the educational societies under ACCES. So I am also a part of it. Being the vice chairman and vice president of ACCES, I am very happy that our chairman, His Excellency Archbishop of Raipur, is also participating in it, and I think he has given the inauguration address. He has already given. Now, my warm concern and prayers to the Archbishop, and he is guiding all the activities of the ACCES in a very efficient manner, and it's a guiding figure for us. My personal congratulations and also my personal prayers to the Archbishop guiding this webinar also. And also all the participants, including the principals from various institutions, the society officers of various Christian societies, and also the vice presidents and administrative officers of various institutions and the Christian education agencies. Now, sorry to say that I am not able to attend the class in detail, but however, I am of the impression that this webinar is actively discussing how to act as a Christian witnessing people, how to give education in this particular situation of Corona lockdown, and after Corona lockdown, what would be our possible tactics and tendencies, strategies for giving education in a proper manner. As you all know, our aim is giving a value sound education and a quality oriented education to every section of the society without any criteria, irrespective of the caste, creed, or color, whatever it may be, religion or sex. We have to give a quality and value-based education to all. That is our Christian witness, witnessing Christ to the northern India. So for which all the Christian institutions are striving fast, striving hard, for which this webinar is, I think, is effective and befitting, discussing various aspects of the Corona situation and the imparting of education. I take this opportunity to congratulate all the participants, all the office bearers who made this webinar a success. And also again, I am repeating my humble prayers and my greetings to the Archbishop also. Thank you very much. My humble prayers for the success of our educational mission to the northern part of India. Thank you very much. May God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Trimani, for the valuable and kind words. I request Very Reverend George Matthew Ramban, the Vice President of Diocesan Education Board, to propose the vote of thanks.
Your Grace, Dr. the Director of MGM Group of Schools, Your Grace, Victor Henry, of Catholic Church, Raipur, Honorable Resource Person, the Smitha, Reverend Dr. Joshi Varghese, Officer, all distinguished principals, Reverend Vice Presidents, Fathers, Sisters, and my dear friends. We know that the world is passing through a very dangerous situation due to coronavirus. No doubt, the most affected area is our education sector. Today, the lockdown has lifted from most of the sectors, except education. We cannot think about school without students. We are concerned and panic about our children. We have to think more seriously about the post-COVID challenges in the management of our schools. In our country, around about 15% of the students has the access of online studies. I'm extremely happy to say a word of thanks to all of you. Today, our research person is, the source person is Mrs. Smitha Matai from Mumbai, has been our chief guest and also a resource person who had a long period of 25 years of experience in education field. Her deliberations were useful and effective for tackling the challenges today. She has kind enough to share her noble wisdom for our group. On behalf of MGM Group of Institutions, I extend our heartfelt gratitude to you, Madam. We are also thankful to bishops, honorable vice presidents, fathers, sisters, and all respected principals for your active cooperation and participation in this webinar. I congratulate Reverend Father Joshi Varghese, the Vice Education Officer, for organizing this webinar. He deserves special appreciation. And I convey our sincere thanks to one and all who supported this event. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, Father Varghese, we can't hear you. I think your mic is muted. We can't hear you.
Sorry. So thus we have come to the end of this day's webinar, and I hope and pray that we would be able to withstand all these challenges posed by this pandemic, and we will be able to help our students to stand on their feet and go ahead and face all the challenges ahead in their life as well. Thank you all your valuable participation and efforts for joining in. And a special thanks to both the Archbishop and the resource person and all the priests and sisters and other principals who are joined in. And also, we will be having another webinar on English language teaching on Wednesday for the English teachers, and another webinar on how to use technology, how to integrate technology in school, especially by the principal for online teaching. That will be conducted on next Saturday, that's the 13th of June. So looking forward to meet you all then there and then again. Thank you.